I just played Portal for the first time. I'm going to tell you what I thought and whether or not other non-gamers like me should give this one a shot. There won't be any major spoilers, but I will be showing several different levels as well as a few secrets. That said, let's jump through the blue hole together. Since this is my first video for the channel, I'd like to very briefly explain my relationship with video games and who might benefit the most from this review and future reviews as well. I think I'm safe in saying that I'm not really a gamer by any standard. I don't really fall into that category. I had a GameCube growing up, but I spent most of that time watching other siblings play games rather than playing through them myself. I'll get to Luigi's Mansion one of these days, just you wait. Over the last year, I got myself a Switch, and I've been slowly digging into video games as a whole and video game culture for the very first time. I definitely don't have the same standards as hardcore gamers. My ideal game is something that's atmospheric, easy to pick up, and just plain fun right out of the gate. I review games from the perspective of someone who's not very serious about them in the first place, all in the hopes of finding games that other non-gamers can use as entry points into the wild, wonderful world of video gaming that we're living through right now. Let's start off with a quick overview of the game and the company that made it, for the benefit of my fellow non-gamers. Portal is a pretty old game by this point. It was published back in 2007 by Valve, a company that used to make critically acclaimed games like Half-Life, Team Fortress 2, and Counter-Strike. They recently announced the release of Half-Life 3 after many years of uncomfortable anticipation from the gaming community. The Portal series is well loved among gamers, and the games consist of puzzle solving and platforming, all within the confines of a monolithic company called Aperture, which itself exists in the Half-Life universe. In Portal, you play as a test subject who is given a portal gun, which allows you to navigate deceptively simple levels that make use of creative design and impressive physics. So, how did I like the game? Portal starts out with minimal instructions, just some visual cues that explain the controls, which are easy enough to understand. The Aperture testing facility is a fantastic space. It's cold and mostly empty, but that's the whole point. The only real NPC in the game is an artificial intelligence named GLaDOS, who speaks to you during almost every level, often giving bad advice or insulting you and your puzzle-solving capabilities.
Most importantly, under no circumstances should you.
The game only includes music during key moments, and overall, the music and sound design are trying to make you feel slightly uncomfortable at all times. You can hear distant machines and sounds of unknown origins. One of my favorite aspects of the level design is the occasional inclusion of these small back rooms that it seems like GLaDOS didn't intend for you to find. These rooms have clues and theories, presumably left behind by a previous test subject. The game's writing is also a huge bonus and contributes to a sense of fun and adventure. GLaDOS is just funny.
The effects of prolonged exposure to the button are not part of this test.
It's hard to think of another robot AI character in any media that's managed to be this weird and emotional. And that's about it for the game's atmosphere. You're always halfway between laughter and this creeping sense of dread. It's creepy overall, but not really spooky. And it's a bit plain, but it's never dull. For a lot of non-gamers, I think this is probably one of the most important factors when approaching a video game for the first time. Even if you haven't played a lot of other games, you won't necessarily be at a disadvantage here, thanks in part to Portal's highly unique gameplay and design. As I mentioned earlier, the controls are easy enough to understand, and there aren't that many controls to remember anyway. The mouse moves the camera around and fires the portal gun, WASD lets you walk around, space lets you jump, and E picks up objects. Control also lets you crouch, but that's not used very often. Puzzle solving is the biggest aspect of the gameplay, but be prepared to do some light platforming as well. But in most cases, you're using the game's physics to fling yourself around. The only place where ease of use hits a wall is in the puzzle solving itself. Yes, if you spend enough time with a level, you can probably find the solution just on your own, but if you're impatient, then you'll probably end up checking a walkthrough online. Not enough at all. I mean, I definitely did. I'm almost ashamed at how much I used a walkthrough for this one. And looking up a solution does indeed cut into the overall satisfaction, but for me, moving through the game and getting to complete the story was the main goal the whole time. And this is where I feel like the game gets difficult for a non-gamer specifically. There are definitely times when it starts to feel like homework, and that's never a good feeling. That's nauseating. It kind of gets to a point where you feel like your third grade teacher gave an extra tough question on the homework based on something you haven't actually talked about in class yet. And you want to figure it out, you really do, but it's already 7 o'clock and Dan Farvish is trying to get you to go to this birthday party at the bowling alley that you weren't invited to. But Katie Firestone's gonna be there, so you close your math book and slip into your Aqua windbreaker, ready for a night on the town, completely forgetting homework for a few hours. I think that non-gamers need fairly consistent encouragement, and the game isn't going to hold your hand here. Again, real gamers tend to like that kind of challenge, but I don't. Portal is intuitive and accessible up to a point, but don't expect to cruise through it without a good number of deaths and long pauses. Oh no. Well... What? In my mind, a game's overall feel and sense of progression help determine how much fun the game is to play. Obviously, this is different for everyone, but I've found Portal to be moderately fun. I appreciated the creativity at play, and when you pull off a tricky puzzle, it feels great. But in the end, puzzle games just are not my absolute favorite genre. I feel like Portal would be more refreshing for a longtime gamer, someone who's played roughly 3,000 different shooters and 4,000 different platformers already. Portal sets itself apart from the majority of games, but if you don't play a lot of stuff to begin with, it might end up feeling like yet another game that isn't very accepting of new players. More importantly, the replay value here is highly debatable. If you're into speedrunning or trying to beat the game with the fewest number of portals, that's cool, and you'll probably have a lot of fun with that, but otherwise you're going to be repeating levels for which you already know the solutions, and that's not as much fun to me. So what's the verdict? Should non-gamers play through Portal? Let's put all these thoughts into the review-brulator and see what we get. Yes. The answer is yes. Portal kind of feels like a new feature that shows up on your phone after you install yet another update that you didn't really care about. It does something sort of useful, like, record where you tap your screen throughout the day. And it even gives each tap like a different color based on the amount of pressure you used. You end up with all these crazy little diagrams that are actually kind of beautiful, and they teach you something about yourself, even if that something isn't especially helpful or interesting. More than anything else, you enjoy knowing that there are smart people somewhere out there who brought this into your life. We did it! The very first review is behind us, and boy does it feel good, at least for me. Whether you're a longtime gamer guy or you've never picked up a controller in your life, thanks for joining me. If there's a game you'd like me to play for the first time, let me know. There's a pretty good chance I haven't played it, unless we're talking about one of these boys right here. I'm working on a video that kind of explains the whole idea behind the channel, so stay on the lookout for that if you're interested, and I think that's it.